Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do take a picture and turn it into different layers and make it look like there's depth to it. So you start out with you have to have a picture separated into layers with transparency. Drag it into After Effects. There we go. So this is where you keep your files. Basically, to start a new composition, the easiest way is just to drag it into this timeline, and it'll automatically create. There's our composition. And okay, so we have our clouds. The black is transparent. We'll put in mountains on top of that, trees on top of that, and the road on top of that. So the mountains on top, trees, road. So right now these are all two-dimensional layers that you can move around. But if you want to create depth, you have to turn them into 3D layers, which is these check boxes over here. So turn those on. And now if we if we change our view to custom view 1, you can see now kind of a representation of they're in 3D. So hover your mouse over the Z axis, this blue arrow, and if you grab it, you can push back the clouds, and we're just going to push back each of these layers. But if you hold Shift while you're pushing, you can push it faster. So the clouds are back there. Mountains are not as far. Trees are a lot closer. And the road can stay where it is. So that's what it looks like now. We can scale up the clouds. If you hit, basically you can transform position and rotation and scale by opening these drop-down menus, but if you just hit S for scale and then click and drag on that slider, we'll scale that up. Same for the mountains, hit S, scale that up, and I'll move it up on the Y-axis a bit. And then the trees, scale them up, and we can move it like that. And the road, we don't really need to scale it, but I will move it up. So now we have these different layers, but we need like a camera to move, to like create movement. So if you right click or control click, you can go new camera, and the default settings are fine. And to change the position of the camera, you hit P, and you can kind of see what's going on right there. But it doesn't work exactly how we want it, so I'll undo that. If you ever want to reset your transform stuff, just in the drop-down menu, there's a reset button. The best way is to create a camera controller. So right-click, and we're going to create a null object, which is just basically it doesn't show up when you render it. And it also has to be a 3D layer. So as you can see, like it's staring at us now, but if I turn it on to 3D layer, it also now has a Z axis that you can push. And we'll parent the camera by grabbing this pick whip, this little swirl, click and grab and drag it to the null object. Now when I change the position on the X, the camera moves. On the Z, the camera moves, the Y. So let's reset that and go to our active camera, and I'll just grab this null object. I'll move in a little bit. So basically I can move this far to the right. I'll insert a keyframe by clicking this stopwatch on the first frame, and then I'll go to frame 30, I guess, and it should automatically create a keyframe, and I can go about that far. So now when I play it, you have a subtle, basically the road is closest, so it moves the most, and that moves a little less. To add some more interest to your scene, if you open up this camera menu, you can turn on camera options, and like depth of field is kind of fun to play with. The way depth of field works is when you turn it on, you have to set like the focus distance, and it's best if you go into top view, zoom out so you can see like this is our road layer, our trees, mountains, clouds, and I guess at the end we want to be focused on the cloud or on the mountains, so we'll set it there and set a keyframe, and maybe in the beginning we'll want to be focused on the road, so we'll drag it back here to where the road is, and basically you don't see anything registering yet because we have to open up the aperture. So 25 pixels, it doesn't use f-stop or whatever. So, but basically you make it bigger and you get more depth of field. So this is our first keyframe where it's focused on the road, and then it shifts focus to the mountains between those keyframes. So we'll give it a quick, not a quick preview, but like at this frame, yeah, and then using like if we use these fills, these shape layers, normally it's comes in red, but if we make it, say, I just double click that square, we'll make it black. We'll make a mask. Let me undo that. Let's do an ellipse. And we'll change that mask to subtract. And then we can, I believe we can feather it in the mask. Feather it that much. Maybe we can expand it a bit. And then hit T for transparency or opacity, and drop the transparency to like 32%. And we'll deselect everything. And so now basically there's a subtle vignette that we just added, and that's one final tip. If I turn it off, you can see the difference. Helps focus the eyes. So those are some tips to how you can turn a picture into a more like dynamic movie.